Everything must change.
Straight Out University, Big John is the host with the plan.
Everything must change.
Straight Out University, Big John is the host with the plan. Time to wake the sleeping giant that lives in every man. Forget the ordinary path, that blueprint's outdated. We building legends here, totally self-created. You need the 4 pillars for total fulfillment. Money, muscle, frame in the game, that's the mission. Master your finances, forge your body, your mindset. Level up your influence, make them all respect. Yet, stop settling for a life that's just a faded dream. Time to build your empire, make your own world shine supreme. This is the goal, let's get to work. Yeah, Straight Out University.
Oh man. Again, with the technical difficulties, man. I mean, what do we do? Just want to reiterate what I was saying earlier, which was give a shout out to Jess from the Unpack Mindset, man. Take care of your moms. And also Sean, take care of family, man. Make sure you take care of those things. But just want to put out a shout out to those 2 people. And secondly, like I said, we wouldn't be us if we weren't dealing with technical difficulties as usual. All right, so let me go ahead and let me get some things out of the way. First off, I want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in and watching us. And as usual, we try to create the best content possible. And I have a lot of people that bring in some stuff and ask me to review some videos, and I'm going to be doing a little bit more of that. So looking forward to those things, and just trying to get through it, you guys. All right, so let's. I have a couple of videos that I want to put out. Actually, there's a lot of videos. There's a bunch of stuff going on. One of them is about the WNBA and the situation with Sophie Cunningham. Well, let me hang on. Let me put this up. With Sophie Cunningham, she's a WNBA player who was talking about Title IX and the things that had to do with trans athletes playing women's sports. And she got a lot of flack for that. I want to say that me and Jess kind of talked about that from the Unpack Mindset. We kind of hit on those things because, it was a pretty controversial thing that she had said, and people took it that way. And part of her discussion was that, we need to make a distinction. So I have a couple videos on those things in the WNBA. There's a whole lot of things that happened in the WNBA just recently about trans athletes. So that's going to be a pretty juicy topic. And the second topic is going to be victimhood. And using a friend of mine's description of it, which is the Victim Olympics. Why are people so tied to the victimhood of everything? Like everything is everyone else's fault, never their own. No kind of responsibility in it. I find that to be a very hot topic, because when you point out other people's problems and they have no solution for anything that they're doing, as far as, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't get a break here, I can't get a break there. But yet they don't make any breaks for themselves, but they blame everybody for not having a break. It's kind of a weird conversation to have with people. And I guess, we all get mental fatigue from an emotional fatigue from those people, because everything is a woe is me, the sky is falling, and there's never any good ending for anything that they're going to do, but yet they don't do anything to help themselves. So, I think that's going to be a great topic also. And I want to bring that up first. I'm going to, let me see. As usual, you guys know that I'm technically challenged. So let me Let me bring this thing up. All right. Well, where is it at? There it is. All right, I'm going to bring up this video. What this video is, it's about this guy. He goes off to a college, and they have this open discussion about, what is the discussion is about impact of DEI. Now, and this ties into like the victimhood of things. Everybody talks about, well, DEI is there because all of these things are happening to certain people, and brown and black people and other people are not included. It's there's a lot of things happening that prevent me from moving forward. And I thought this was a really interesting conversation because it's really telling about some of the thought process we have, or some young people and their thought process of how I can't move because the boogeyman or somebody somewhere somehow is stopping me, and that YT people are the reasons why. And it's like no thought process in the self responsibility and taking care of those things ourselves, and not allowing other people to affect us, because we always talk about, like, I don't care what other people say, but yet I care about everything about what other people say. I'm not going to let that person stop me, but yet I'm going to talk about how everybody is stopping me from doing something. So let me go ahead and let me bring this video up, and let's check it out.
So there's a sign that says DEI is racist, and I want you to elaborate on that because I'm a little confused.
Yeah. So essentially, DEI basically tells people that your skin color, your immutable characteristics about you, are more important than your character and your merit. Would you agree with that? What do you think is more important, you being your race, or
I think me being
what
a black
you've done
woman
with
is
your
important
life?
to who I am.
Okay, but what's more important
Me being a black woman.
than your merit, the things you've done in your life?
I feel like they both correlate
Or
with each other. So
which one do you think is more important? Your race?
She doesn't. You got to answer the question. That doesn't correlate with one another.
Race, or the things you've done in your life, your character?
The things I've done in my life, or my race, both correlate to each other,
No,
because
no,
the things I have done in my life are because of my race, because
No.
I am a black woman.
That's not answering the question.
Is
Which
that
one?
not?
Well, it's not answering the question based on what you're saying DEI
of you
is.
becoming
Right? So DEI is basically saying that your race and your characteristics about you that are immutable, that you can't change, are more important than your merit and your character. So I'm asking you which one you think is more important, your character and your accomplishments and your merit, or your race.
That's going to be a tough one, because I can already see that there's always the blame game of somebody else being responsible for me and my, and my personhood. That, we always talk about, or there's a lot of talk about, like body autonomy, and I can do this and I can do that, and you can't stop me from doing it. But yet, there's a lot of blame in everybody else. And that's kind of what I see here, especially with students and young people today. Everything is about what everybody else controls them to do, but yet nobody can control them from doing anything. So none of that ever, you can't, when you ask people, young people, to reconcile that, they just can't, they can't do that in a conversation. So let's, moving forward.
And I'm saying that because I am a black woman, what I have endured ties into my accomplishments in life.
No.
So I'm confused on your question.
No, it's a very simple question. It's just one or the other, because that's what the colleges or your jobs or these kind of things are looking at, right?
It's both.
It can't be both,
Well,
because that's not what DEI says. DEI basically says that regardless of your merit, affirmative action, you might have the same test scores. I mean, this is what happened in the Harvard case, where Harvard got sued because even though Asians were scoring 300 points better than black people on the SATs, they weren't getting in. The black people were getting in. Why does that make any sense if they have equal merit, or if they have higher merit, but because they're not black? Is that fair?
Yes, but that's why we have.
Oh, she said yes. Okay. Let's see where this goes.
That is fair.
Yeah, that's why we have.
Why is that fair? Why is it fair that an Asian person who does better than a black person on a test doesn't get in just because they're Asian? How is that fair?
Doesn't get in because they're Asian.
Yes.
But Asian is included in DEI.
No.
Oh, Asians are the most successful group. They're not included in DEI. That's why the whole thing happened with the lawsuit.
No, but they are.
The DEI happens with Black, Hispanic, Indian, basically.
And Asian.
What I'm saying is the lawsuit happened where Asians were scoring higher.
The lawsuit happened.
Then,
That's
yes,
not into the
and they got
entirety of
sued.
DEI, though.
That is what DEI represents.
DEI
represents
the-
affirmative action, which says that we are giving people like you a leg up over other people despite their merit or character because of the color of their skin,
Because
their
they didn't
gender,
wanna
or their
take us before.
sexuality. What do you mean they don't want to take you
They didn't
before?
want to take us before because of our skin color, right?
Who didn't
Okay, who? He's gonna say who?
want to take you before?
They didn't want to give jobs to Black people or
Who-
Hispanic people.
Who didn't want to give jobs to Black people?
So what?
Who's they?
White people.
Since
Oh.
when?
Since when?
Since when?
Since slavery.
Know a little bit about history, man. All right, moving forward.
Since slavery.
Since slavery. This is the problem.
So you're
that has
saying
been
that
building
something
up
that
since
happened
slavery.
150 years ago has made it so that you need to have a leg up now.
Yes.
Ooh, yeah. Come on. Ah, damn. That's victimhood. That's victimhood. You know, we can't live about something that happened so long ago and it doesn't affect us today. You know, that's part of victimhood, is holding on to something that has really no bearing. I mean, even in the most dramatic cases, has very little bearing on today moving forward. You know, part of moving forward is never bringing your past with you, because there's nothing really in your past that's going to help you unless we learn from it. Now, how do we learn from it and get better moving forward? But dragging the most negative parts of what happened in the family's history and moving forward never helps, because if that was the case, imagine the people that were sacrificed by the Mayans and the Aztecs. You know, what, they're not carrying that moving forward. You know, so that's a really tough one to try to reconcile. I don't know. That's just not a good way to move forward. All right, continuing the video.
So the same for the Irish.
The Black Lives Matter
Asians,
movement
Chinese
happened
people
5
went through
years
some
ago,
of the
5,
worst.
6 years ago.
There was the Chinese Exclusion Act here in California that happened in this country. And now Chinese people are doing better than white people in this country. They had the exact same things that happened essentially with this discrimination and things going on as Black people in this country. And yet they are surpassing Black people, white people even, in so many different areas.
And that's
And why are
great
they
for
doing
them.
that?
Good for you, not for me. Yeah, come on. That's how was everybody in the same boat, and yet, you know, other people got out and are prospering or doing a little bit better, you know, because they work harder, the responsibility in what they're doing, accountability. All right, moving forward.
But what about the people who are still being oppressed?
Who are those people?
The Black people.
So what can you do that I can't do?
What can you're saying? What can I do
Yes,
that you can't?
you're
do?
Black, I'm white. What can you do that I can't do?
You
Or
have
what
a
can
bet-
I do that you can't do?
Well, as a white man, you have a better chance of getting a job than I do.
That is not true. That is literally the
Why is that
entire
not
point of
true?
DEI. DEI, I just proved it to you with the whole thing with Harvard. This happens all across the country with
You
affirmative
proved it to me
action.
at Harvard with Asian
Yes, but
people.
this happened.
Yeah.
That's why they have a DEI department to make this happen.
Yes,
Because it's not based
So
on
how is
merit.
it
It is based
racist?
on your race. Because it's based on race and not on merit.
it's
That
racist
Yeah, that's true. That's why they lost that lawsuit.
is
because
racist.
it's giving people a chance to get a job.
Lower performing people.
Lower performing
if I-
people. So
if-
you think that
so if you
people
owned
of
a
color are
business-
lower performing people?
Did you catch what she said right there? She automatically put it to her race. And it's like, that's not what he said. What he said is lower performing people. And she automatically put it toward her race. See, that's victimhood, man. We gotta stop that. You know, I mean, it is true. You know, if you don't have the mental capacity to do something, to do a particular job, then we don't want those people doing that job. Wouldn't that just stand to reason that we don't want those people doing that job? But, you know, it shouldn't be based on your race or your last name or your skin color. It should be based on the merit in which you've succeeded in being the best at that job. Moving forward.
Well, if they are lower performing, yes, they are. If you owned a business,
So lower performing people are
let me
people
ask you,
of color. Let me
if
just
you
get
had
that.
Never said that. Again, you know, that's a straw man. You know, she's arguing a point he never made because she thinks that it betters her position in an argument. And that's just not the way. That's not the way to debate. It's not the way to have a conversation. You know, proper discord is that you're going to address every issue. that's coming up and not what issue you think or you feel. It's the issue at hand, and she's not answering any of those questions. And she backtracks by saying, "Hey, I'm gonna address something that you didn't say because I'm gonna argue that point." That's just bad faith, I mean, and not well thought out to have an argument that way because he didn't never mention that. So, again, the victimhood is strong with this one.
A business. If you had a business, would you want someone there whose skin color is like yours, or someone who's going to do a good job?
Someone who's going to do a job that I want them to do, regardless of the race or skin.
There you go. Exactly. That's the whole point of DEI. DEI tells them it doesn't matter about what you do if you're going to be good at your job. It tells you, because you're black, you come and get the job over someone else just because you're black.
Right. But
which is
she said right. All right. Okay, did we admit something here? All right, moving forward.
Right. But
which is racist.
Okay. Hold on. Let me backtrack.
Backtrack.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to there's probably about 6 more minutes of this, and I'm going to be honest with you, it sounds like she's already rethinking the position that she had, for the simple reason is that she got cornered in that one. So, but that's part of victimhood. Victimhood is blaming everybody else for everything that happens to you, regardless of your decisions. And, we can't have that happen. And I want to give a shout out to Luce. What's up, Mrs. Chavez? I hope you want to give a shout out to you and your man. I hope he's doing well. Wish him well. But there's a lot of those kinds of things that happen when we don't take responsibility. And that's exactly what she just did. She, everything is surrounded by who she is as a person and nothing about who she is as who her character is. It's like, you want to have this thought process of saying, hey, I want to apply the fact that I'm Hispanic so I can get this job, but I'm not going to look at that, even though I'm not qualified. But because I'm Hispanic, I should have that job. Nobody wants to think that way, and only people who believe in the victimhood and like my friend of mine says, the victim Olympics, and that's problematic. Because we don't take responsibility for the things that we're doing. So, I find that to be rather, for lack of a better word, I mean, that's a terrible thing to be. That's a terrible thing to be, because all you do is perpetuate that and moving forward, because then everything that happens to you in your life is always going to be somebody else's problem, is always going to be somebody else's issue, because it's never yours. Well, because you're too busy blaming everybody. So I want to go through this next thing, talking about how we see how people are. Let me see how I want to put this. I think that people tend to never have a negative thought process about themselves. They never say, I did this, I did that, only because it hurts their position when they're bitching about something. So I want to bring up this next video that talks about how some people are tied to this and don't even know that they're tied to this. Let me bring this thing up. Let me work on this. Okay. Let me start this off. Now, I want to talk about how a couple of months ago, somebody had come to me and told me that, I'm oppressed. And this person was telling me that I don't even understand how oppressed I am. That's how oppressed I am. And I thought that was quite funny, for the simple reason is that I don't consider myself to be an oppressed person. I work hard in what I do. And, it's not based on my skin color is why I went out and got, the fact that I'm Hispanic and that I have lineage to, Mexico, I'm from the United States, but when I move forward and try to get a better job, it's not because I'm Mexican. It's because I aspire to be something else. I aspire to challenge myself to do better. But yet, other people are like, well, I didn't get this job because I'm Hispanic. And I never thought that way. I never thought that, I didn't win something because I was Hispanic. I just thought that, well, maybe I just wasn't good enough today. And I wanted to make sure that I work hard so I won't have that problem tomorrow. But let me bring this up. Let me see. Okay, here we go. All right.
Back in 2005, Morgan Freeman said something that made a lot of folks upset.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it.
That's the best thing that you can do for people is, in order to get rid of the woe is me attitude is to stop woe is me all the time. Stop with the bullshit, and take responsibility for what you're doing. I did a story on this once about, mental fatigue of people that are victims, the victimhood. And Morgan Freeman's right on this, where he says, if somebody plants it in your head, if all they do is talk about racism, then all of a sudden everything is looked at from a racist lens. And even things that are not. Now that's the problem. When you cheapen the word racist and turn everything into racism, then nothing becomes racism anymore because everybody's feelings are all into it. What is really happening that we're calling it that? Because it has to rise to a certain level. And if it doesn't rise to that level, then it really isn't that because of your feelings. Just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. So, I believe in what Morgan Freeman says here. He's got to stop talking about it. Moving forward.
But now we actually have proof that what he said might be true.
And just real quick, this was a study that was done about victimhood and how people are easily or persuaded to believe that they are victims to the point where they actually believe that they are a victim because other people planted in their head. The power of suggestion is great. If somebody believes, you can look up into the sky, and if you look long enough, somebody's going to stand next to you and look up into that sky also. And then they're going to say, at some point, someone's going to say they saw something. So, that's the power of suggestion. And that's what this study was all about. Very interesting study. Then moving forward.
They did an experiment with a group of women, and they put scars on their faces. And they told these women that they're going into a job interview. And the purpose of the experiment is to find out whether people with facial disfigurements face discrimination. They showed them the scars in the mirror. The women saw themselves with these scars. And as they led them out of the room, they said, we're just going to touch it up a little bit. And as they touched it up, they removed the scarring completely. So the women went into the job interview thinking that they are scarred, but actually being their normal selves. And the result of the experiment is that those women then came back reporting massively increased level of discrimination. Indeed, many of them came back with comments that the interviewer had made that they felt were referencing their facial disfigurements. And this is why I think this ideology of victimhood is so dangerous, because if you preach to people constantly that we're all oppressed, that we're all being discriminated against at different levels, that because I'm an immigrant, I'm automatically disadvantaged, that because I have dark skin, I'm automatically disadvantaged, then that primes people to look for that. And it's like, when you buy a new car, you see that car everywhere else as you drive around. It's that kind of effect, which is why this ideology of teaching people that they're victims is so incredibly damaging and so incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, that's the truth of that. You sit there and go, when you preach something long enough and that you do it and you live in this echo chamber. And that's kind of where we're at in society today. Where so many people are in an echo chamber and they do not fully understand that, it's not just a situation of, everything that you think and feel is correct, because they live in that echo chamber and everybody just says, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I feel the same way, just like that woman who was trying to tell me that I'm oppressed and that I don't even have the wherewithal. Now that's what she said. I don't have the wherewithal. So she's basically saying I'm so stupid that I don't even know that I'm oppressed. And yet I hear people like that. When I hear people talk about that, and I'm just like, and I'm not trying to be facetious when I say this, but it's like, look, I'm looking at you and I'm probably in a better place than you are, but yet you're telling me how I'm oppressed by white tea people. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not oppressed by white tea people. And in case you guys are wondering why I'm saying white tea people, is that because the algorithm will flag me if I say the other one and, kick me off. But in case somebody's wondering why I'm saying white tea people are not oppressing me. Okay. I don't feel that way. And I work hard, and everything that I've worked hard for, I've gotten. Anything that I've worked hard for, I've achieved. Now, here's the thing. Have I achieved all of my goals? Have I got to all of my goals? No. Have I failed in not achieving certain goals? Yes. I mean, those of us who played sports, we all wanted to be champions, but could we all be champions? No. Did I get success in playing sports? Yes. And to agree, some more than others, and for me, some less than where I wanted to go. So, you have to understand that, you have to work hard for what you want. You can't just blame people. And then to blame specific people because of my skin color is the weirdest thing ever. Like, I don't have that victim mentality that I didn't get to, I didn't win this because the white tea people conspired against me. No, I don't think that. I don't feel that. And nor do I push that narrative, for the simple reason is that it's not. Now, have I been put on the floor by a police officer who, for whatever reason thought I was a bigger criminal than the failing to yield at a stop sign? Yeah. But do I hate all police officers for that? No. Do I hate all white tea police officers because of that? No. I mean, I'm not happy. I wasn't happy about the situation, but I went through the process. Okay. There's things that I can do and things that I can't do at that moment. So you know what? I'm going to think and be a little bit smarter. Now, I've gone through things in my life. I've been discriminated against. What I feel was discrimination, but none of those things ever held me back. I never not achieved what I wanted to do because I felt somebody was holding me back. If somebody was better than me, then they were better than me. And I don't have that victim mindset. And I see that a lot with young people today. So, I find it how disturbing it is when people grab onto that thing and just will not let it go. You don't understand that, people are against us. And then they point to the people. They point, white tea people are against us. And it's like, where? I had a conversation with a coworker of mine when I was working, and we were talking about the tax code, and I was talking about like, hey, you can lower your taxable income by doing A and B and blah blah blah. So we were just talking about these things, and and I consider this person to be very intelligent, from our conversations, and he was like, you know what? No, they wrote the tax code. And I'm like, who they? And he goes, yeah, we can't get to those things in the tax code to lower your taxes like what you're talking about because they didn't write it that way. They wrote it for them. And I'm all, who's they? And he says, them. And I'm all, no, who's them? And he says, white tea people. And I said, so you mean to tell me that I can't use the tax code to offset my taxes? I can't, because 90% of the tax code is about how you can, how you can make money on taxes. And, and I said, the other 10% is basically how you have to pay taxes. But there's a lot of things you can do to offset your taxes. And he says, no, only they qualify for that. And I said, well, where in the hell does it say that? It doesn't say that anywhere. We're all entitled to use it. We just don't talk about it. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but in my family, as I was growing up, we grew up rather poor. We didn't have enough money to talk about money at the dinner table because we didn't have any money. So we didn't really have those kinds of discussions until I got older and I started understanding the things and I started opening my eyes about what was around me and what I could afford and what I couldn't afford, what money was, what an interest rate was. And, you know, and I didn't start really getting into those kinds of conversations until later on in life when I got exposed to other people who had money. And then I started to understand money. You know, it started from being a renter to being a homeowner to learning how to save money to learning how to, you know, how to pay yourself first. Robert Kiyosaki. Matter of fact, I got that book somewhere around over there. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Read it. I did a lot of reading. You know, I like to read. I like to understand some things. And, you know, that's taking responsibility for yourself. And I think that a lot of times we don't do that. We don't take the responsibility. But I do find it fascinating that people will hold on to that so tightly that they will not let it go, because that becomes part of who they are. And to question that is questioning them as people. And it's like, look, your ideology is not who you are, it's what you believe. Now, you should have a free enough mind to think, I'm not always right, I can be wrong, and be open to having that discussion on whether you're right or wrong. But if I'm wrong, I need to rethink where I'm at, because I'm wrong. And don't be so prideful on it. All right, well, let me show you this next one, which is from the old movie The Matrix. Let me see, bring it up. All right, here we go.
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. When you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect.
Yeah, that's the truth. And, you know, I don't think that a lot of people even realize that, you know, you're so part of the system that you don't even understand, like, man, you know, I'm part of a system. I'm part of something that maybe isn't right, because I live in my echo chamber and I don't listen to anybody else, or I'm told, I'm around people who tell me don't listen to those other people because what they're saying is crazy, or what they say is you know, and then there's tags that they put on people that these people are nationalist and they're ultra nationalist, or they're socialist, or they're this or they're that. Don't get me wrong. I'm a Democrat. And, you know, all I hear is other Democrats tell me how I shouldn't listen, and I should not listen to Republicans because they're conservative. And then when I talk to Republicans that I know and they're friends, and I talk to them and they say, man, don't listen to those, you know, those liberal socialists, because, you know, that's, you know, those are bad people. And it's like, you know, I want to listen to both sides, and I never discourage people from listening to people. You know, go listen to what they're saying and formulate an opinion. Don't just believe what people are telling you. It has to pass the smell test, so to speak, which is, look, if this sounds like BS, then it smells like BS. It's BS. That's what it is. And a lot of people put that out there because they talk from a narrative of either I don't listen to anybody else, I don't hear anybody else that's not in my group and doesn't agree with me. And that's not a good way to be. That really isn't. You know, it's just not a healthy way to be. So you gotta move from that mindset and be a little bit more self-aware and self-thinking, because that whole victim shit really we need to really call that out, because it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I see a lot of people talk about that and really become indoctrinated in it, because they're just like, oh, you know, I didn't get this because, well, you know, the people with money, they're white tea people with money, didn't want to give it to me because I'm Mexican, and they know I'm not going to bend a knee, or I'm black, and they don't like black people. And it's like, really? Is that what you know, or what you think you know? And then people get like, oh, well, you know, and then they start arguing with me about things. And it's like, come on, man, you know, we got to stop thinking that way. Let's think of things as an opportunity. Now, if that's not my opportunity, then I'm going to create another opportunity. There's going to be multiple ways of me winning. because if I don't win this way, I want to win this way or this way. Now, if I don't win in any of those ways, then I need to think of a new thing. Okay. And you know what? People just don't have, they just don't have the ability, or they just don't want to. All they want to do is this. And this is what I say about victim people. And I'm going to give you the best solid thing that I can do for you as a victim. And if you have victimhood mentality and you want to be a gold medalist in the Victim Olympics, here's your song. Yeah, no, look it, check it out, man. We got to stop with the bullshit of being victims for everything, because you know what? That violin needs to be played for you, because nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody cares about your bullshit stress, because everything that you're doing is your problem mainly, because you're not doing anything to be better. So, you know, that's my topic for that one. Although I do have, there's this second topic, and I think this is a juicy topic. This is about Sophie Cunningham. Now, if you don't know who Sophie Cunningham is, she is a WNBA basketball player who was talking about Title IX and trans people, or trans athletes in women's sports. Took a lot of hell for that one. And so when she said that, a lot of people were very upset with her. But she gained a lot of like notoriety for it. Like a lot of people came out and said, yeah, no, I agree with you. Thank you for speaking out, because she's probably one of the first female athletes. There are other athletes, but they've all been villainized. And she came out and she was gaining popularity just within basketball itself. And then all of a sudden, you know, she says this, and she got this much surge of fans that were appreciative of the fact that she said, hey, you know what? I think that we need to be a little bit fair and balanced about this. I don't believe that trans athletes should be in any other sport. I don't believe that we should be competing against men who believe, who are trans. So, you know, she made this controversial statement, and she has been drugged. She's been called a MAGA Barbie. I don't even know if she's Republican, but she's been called a MAGA Barbie. A lot of people have been talking shit, you know, just a lot of shit about her. And she posed for this picture, which ignited the flame even further. Let me bring this thing up. She posed for this picture where people were saying, hey, you know, thank you for standing up for girls' rights and Title IX and so forth. And as you can see, both of these ladies here have the XXXY shirt, which is really kind of a, you know, I'll be honest with you, that's kind of lighting a fire to an already hot situation. And you know, when you look at that, that's kind of, for lack of a way of putting it, that's just pissing off a lot of people who are on the far left, who don't want to address the situation or have that conversation because they believe that it is not required. But so Sophie Cunningham has had a surge of people that really like her and are totally on her side. So I want to bring this thing up because she was given a video also, people putting this thing out, which again is just causing more drama for her. Let me put this video out.
Thank you. Thank you. You stood up for us. You didn't have to. You could have taken the easy way out. You could have sat back
and enjoyed your fame.
You could have avoided the hate,
taken the money, and quietly closed the door behind you, leaving girls like us to fight this battle alone. But you didn't. You spoke up. You spoke up.
When it comes just to protecting young girls in sport, I feel very strongly about that.
And said what millions of women were thinking, but were too afraid to say. And when they tried to make you back down,
you stood even taller. Yeah, I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense.
So thank you. So thank you. Thank you for showing me what strength looks like.
What courage looks like.
What integrity is.
And I think I'll always believe in that.
Thank you for showing us what it means to be a real woman.
Yeah, look, obviously those are digs at certain people who believe the other way. But the core of the message is people are just saying, hey, thank you for speaking up. And she caught a lot of shit for people, like when she said, hey, I feel that it's just common sense. Well, all of a sudden, everybody on the other side starts fighting about, well, what are you saying? We're stupid. What are you saying this? And it's like, look, she's not saying that. Again, people with the victimhood mentality about, anything you say, do, can and will be used against you, whether it is what you were arguing or not, whether it was your point or not. Just like that young lady at that student who was making things about, everything about race and or who people identify as, making that a victimhood situation, and you can't do that. You can't sit there and say, okay, I'm going to make everything about that. But you have so many people that are just not thinking about these kinds of things well enough. And it's affecting everybody, literally everybody. And to the point where it's unhealthy how everybody is turning against this. Now look, if you have a person championing a specific thing, you have good and you have people that believe and don't believe in the situation. But I don't believe in, in becoming a victim and then trying to victimize people as you're a victim. You can't cry victim and then be outwardly out, at people and be in their throat about things and then call yourself a victim. There's a NBA owner who went at some people who were just saying, thank you, Sophie. So let me get to this thing.
And
for you guys,
I hope God can save you.
This. Yeah. She said for you to come here and pull this shit.
Yeah.
She said the word.
Yeah.
Did she say effing insane or?
No, she said the word.
And nobody around you spoke up for you.
No.
So, I will say, Annalie, when I came over, you were in tears.
Yeah, I've never been yelled at like that. I've had people hate on me on the internet, but it doesn't really affect me as much because it's just people online. But that just took me by surprise because I thought she was gonna be nice, and then she started screaming at us and cussing at us. So yeah.
So what was your reaction when I texted you that is the owner of the team?
It's just sad. We were like, what? Yeah, we were shocked. Yeah, it's disappointing though too because she's also a woman and she just kind of cussed out two 16-year-olds that were just trying to have fun. We weren't trying to be political. We were just trying to support Sophie, which I guess maybe that.
So what that was the NBA or the WNBA owner crashing out on these two 16-year-olds about how they had a sign that said, thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for us. And that's all their sign said. It didn't say anything about, whatever. Now, granted, they had the XXYY, and I alluded to that a little bit earlier because that seems to be the hallmark of laying ground level about XXY, XY is the difference between men and women and trans people playing in sports that people believe that they don't belong in. And, because of that is why there's so many people that are just pissed about it, to the point where, like I said, you can't claim to be a victim and then victimize somebody in that process. And that's happening everywhere. And again, you sit there and go, well, why are we doing this? What is the deal with this? And look how far people are going now. Here's a program that I don't really watch because I do believe that some of the things that they say are biased on this, but I believe this in both ways, both conservative and liberal news channels. But watch what happens with this young lady who takes this sign out at a WNBA game. Here's what they did to her. Oops. Where's that?
Or someone affiliated with the league would not have.
All right. Starting over.
Yeah, Sean, I could have assumed that the league or someone affiliated with the league would not have wanted me to have that sign there. So I was very careful going into the game. I looked up all of the rules. I knew it had to be on an 11 by 17 inch piece of paper or poster board. I left no derogatory comment, nothing negative, nothing political. My sign said, Sophie, thank you. Signed, a girl mom. A lot kinder than a lot of the signs that I saw in there, I'll tell you that. Someone from across the court, I'm assuming it was someone who was maybe a security person affiliated. He was very obviously with either the Target Center or the WNBA. He looks at me, he says, "Put that sign down." And I'm looking around, there's like 1,000 signs beside me. And so I keep holding it, and he comes over there, he says, "You can have your sign." I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, it has her name on it." I said, "I can't have this sign because it has Sophie's name on it." He said, that's right.
Yeah, I want to cut that a little short because that's actually a really long interview. You know, again, you know, this is where we're at. You know, we're telling people you can't have a sign because it has a certain person's name who is now synonymous with backing up young girls who want to play, you know, and women who want to play in a league that's their own and not with a trans athlete. So, you know, I mean, and you know, like I said, you can get into all this, but the whole victimhood thing, oh my God, you're doing this, and yet, you know, you're victimizing people. You know, it's like saying, you know, oh my God, I think that person's gonna slap me as you're slapping them, and then you don't expect to be slapped back. That's the craziest thing ever to me, you know. And again, you know, it's just happening everywhere. And I find it totally amazing that people take this victimhood and as they're victimizing people. Now, it's even gotten so far as, think about that. They don't even want her name on a sign, just her name, her first name. They don't want that on a sign at a game because she's not on, you know, she practiced her freedom of speech and her common sense thought. And because of that, the league is actually, or teams are actually saying, hey, if her name is on a sign anywhere, you got to take it down. That's crazy. Well, let's look at this other video.
Sophie, and what really disappoints me, I liked Sophie Cunningham as a player. I thought she was hysterical and think she could play. I had no idea she was MAGA Barbie this entire time because I didn't do a deep dive until she opened her mouth about something that is not actually an issue across the board in women's sports. It's not an issue. It's something that has been made up as a problem. Sophie, and what really disappoints me, I liked Sophie Cunningham as a player. I thought she was hysterical and think she could play. I had no idea she was MAGA Barbie this entire time because I didn't do a deep dive until she opened her mouth about something that is not actually an issue across the board in women's sports. It's not an issue. It's something that has been made up as a problem.
Nah. Nah. That's not true. For the simple reason is that there's a whole bunch of places and where trans athletes are competing against women and winning. You know, there was just one in the Olympics, won a gold medal, pretty much beat the crap out of some people. I'm biased toward that because I coached women's boxing and had a female fighter who was part of the U.S. travel team. And, you know, there's no way that I would allow her to have fought a man or a trans athlete. No, I mean, there's just no way. There's just no way you can do that. I mean, and one of the girls that was that fought, and I don't remember the athlete's name. I want to say he was from India. I'm not 100% sure. But he when they interviewed this young lady after fighting the trans athlete, she said she had never been hit so hard in her life. Like she said, it was just something unreal. And you know, you gotta be careful with this thing. There was a volleyball player who just recently, I want to say up in Sacramento, or I believe it was Sacramento or San Jose. You know, is playing on a volleyball team, and it's just pretty much dominating the game. And, you know, people are like, yeah, you know, there was a young lady in high school, I believe, who got hit in the face and it cracked her orbital bone, something like that. And yeah, and she had a concussion from a volleyball. And I'm thinking, volleyball can do that? Well, I guess if it's hit hard enough, I mean, holy shit, you know. But I think that this opens up the WNBA. Now, I've never seen a league so intent on breaking itself down than the WNBA. It is amazing how they just want to run out of business. And what I mean by that is they're saying that, like, this woman is saying, well, first off, she's saying, I was a fan of Sophie until she opened her mouth and she had a different opinion than I did. So now I'm never going to talk to her again. I'm never going to see, I'm no longer a fan. And it's like, well, I don't know. I don't agree with certain actors that say things. I don't agree with certain people that say things, but I don't distance myself from them because of their viewpoint unless they distance themselves from me. So I'm like, look, I don't do that. I don't unfriend somebody because you have a different opinion of me, or you're a conservative, or you're a liberal, or whatever you are. I don't distance myself from you because of that. Like I always said, I don't hate people because people tell me to hate them. I only hate people because of how they treat me. They could treat you well, or they could treat me well, but not you. Well, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be friends with that person. Why? Because you don't like them. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to have a mind of my own. But I think that this could be a problem for the WNBA for this reason. What are you going to do? Like, there are currently trans athletes in women's sports currently right now and dominating. As a matter of fact, once you invite that, how long is it going to take for the WNBA to be affected by a trans athlete, and they have to deal with that? Now, how is that going to be received when people are losing their positions because of a trans athlete? I wonder how that's going to happen. And you know what? We're going to find out. Check it out. Here's the coach of the Valkyrie. And they're the San Francisco Valkyrie, I think is what they're called. And here she's here to explain about how she's all good with it. Let's see what the coach has to say.
The main thing, was interesting.
Oops, sorry about that.
I hated that picture. Excuse me, would you cook for me for 100?
How I'm seeing it is, if I could answer with, like, for me, sports is about belonging. It's about inclusivity. It's about allowing everyone to be their authentic self. I'm big on that just because I have been criticized for my height, for my ethnicity. I've been in those "you shouldn't belong here" many times. And for me, I don't want that space, especially Golden State, to ever feel like that. So I'm all about women, little girls deserving to play, and that includes trans women. So I'm all about inclusivity.
All right. This reminds me of that situation of what is it called? Fuck around and find out. For the simple reason is, you're going to find out. And what you're going to wind up finding out is that it's not in your best interest. Ultimately in the end, you're going to find out. Okay. Now that's what's going to wind up happening. And when you do, how are you going to take it? Are you suddenly going to change? Now check it out. I have this, there's a player also. That was a coach. Here's a player who's all for it. Let me start this off.
Trans athletes and what they can compete in. I would welcome a trans athlete on my team or against my team anytime. I don't think it's a problem in the world. It's just another way to kind of attack trans people.
Yeah. It's not a way to attack trans people. It's because we're different. Biologically, we're different. So, when we think of this, we're thinking of like, hey, you know what? This is going to be simple. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to still get in there and I'm going to get my points and I'm still going to do this. Yeah. But how are you going to do that when you can't even compete? Now, where this is currently happening in a professional league is in France. Now this person, they're talking about this person coming to the WNBA in the very near future, possibly next year. So this could be a reality for the WNBA very soon. Let's check this person out. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, that's gonna be a rough one. Okay. Now, I don't know the name of that French player. Hang on a second. I want to say that there are 2 French players in that league. Okay. One of them is the one you just saw. And Julie Peter. And then there's an Aroya whatever. It's a European name. Okay. Obviously, I'm a graduate of the Oxnard Elementary School District. Oxnard School District. So obviously I can't read that well. But you know, you look at that and it's like there's 2 of them. Okay. There's 2 that play in this French league. And you know, it's problematic because they're killing it, both of them. And it's like, I'm gonna go through it real quick. Let me show you guys what this is about. All right, well, that's their name. The top 2, averaging the first person that you just saw, Julie, averaging 35 points a game. All right, and the second one is averaging 22 points a game. So they're the only 2 transgender athletes that are playing for that league, and they're ranked 1 and 2 when it's points scored per game. Now, moving forward, this is Julie. Obviously, you see the build difference, and then that's him, Duncan. Well, maybe that'll be a plus for the WNBA because I don't see anybody doing that. And he actually played in the guys league. And was considered in a now I don't know what league that is, but I was reading that it's kind of like a D3 division. So this is that's going to be very interesting. You go to the WNBA, and that's I guess the league that he was in France on a 3-on-3. Now this is the second person. This is that individual who is scoring 23 points a game. 11 ribbies and 4 assists a game. Now, this person started when they came back from playing ball at the age of 43. Now, this person is dominating the league, only averaging second best to the other trans athlete. So I find that to be kind of telling about what's going to happen here. You know, these people are in France playing and dominating. So it's like maybe we're thinking, okay, we got some of the best. We got some of the best in the WNBA playing here. They ain't in France. They're here. So, you know, how is that going to affect us? Well, here's how it's going to affect us here in the WNBA here in the United States, because just recently the WNBA has put it out there and said, we are accepting of trans athletes. We do not discriminate. So here we go. No discrimination. This is Enos. His last name is not Kentner. It's Fordham, I believe it's called. I believe his last name is Friedman. Is it Friedman? Yeah, Freedom. And he is a former top 3 pick in the NBA who is now going to declare himself eligible. I believe he had a 12-year career in the NBA. He's been out. I think he last played in 2022, I think. And he is now going to declare himself eligible for the NBA draft. Check this out.
After careful consideration and reviewing the current eligibility guidelines, I am officially declaring myself a WNBA prospect. If simply declaring who you are is all that's required, then I meet every single requirement necessary to compete in the WNBA. My team and I have carefully examined the WNBA's eligibility criteria and governing framework surrounding self-identification and inclusion. Based on the current guidelines, I can and am officially declaring my eligibility for the upcoming WNBA draft in May 2027. I am definitely not here to mock, make fun of, or disrespect any community or personal choices. I am simply asking that the current rules be applied equally to everyone. The rules that represent the very values many WNBA players and coaches have publicly advocated for. My team and I are prepared to ensure these guidelines are applied equally, consistently, and without exception. And I look forward to the WNBA honoring its stated principles. See you at training camp.
Yeah, that's going to be rough. I ain't going to lie to you. Now, looking at this guy's history, yeah, he played he was let me see here. He played 11 seasons in the National Basketball Association. He was drafted in 2011 by the Utah draft. He was the 3rd overall pick in the 2011 draft. And he retired in 2022. So not that many years ago, I mean, and he's, this guy's he's legit, man. This guy he really is legit. And you sit there and I think, man, it's just not going to get any worse, right? I mean, here's a former NBA player who's going to declare himself for the draft. I mean, what do you do? Now I'm hearing that there's somebody else, another former top, I believe a first-round draft pick. I don't know where in the first round, but he has declared himself eligible for the draft. And it's like, we are opening up. So now what is the WNBA doing? So now what the WNBA is doing is they're going to meet, the commissioner is going to meet and have a meeting to talk about who's eligible. So it makes me wonder, does that mean the WNBA is now saying that they don't accept trans athletes, or that you have to meet a particular criteria other than you identify as a woman in order to I mean, there needs to be a different criteria for these trans athletes? Or are they just going to let these people in? I don't know. All I know is there was a guy named Andrew Wilson who says this thing, and I'm a little biased about what he says, and I don't mean I mean against what he's saying, because I don't like it. Maybe because I was a coach and I did coach women's boxing, and I don't necessarily agree with what he says, or I should say I'm in my feelings about it because I feel I don't agree with him because it pisses me off. But what he says is this: I'm all in support of trans athletes being in women's sports because I don't care. I don't care if they beat the snot out of them. That's what women wanted. That's what they're going to get. So if by having trans athletes means that there's going to be less women in the sport, that's their fault. So if you have a team of trans athletes and they take 5 spots from women, biological women, that's their fault. And if they want to have women in boxing or in MMA and they get the hell beat out of them by a man or by a trans athlete, then that's their fault and they deserve it. And I'm like, look, man, I don't believe that. That bothers the hell out of me, but I understand what he's saying. If women are actively out there saying, these coaches and these players are actively saying that they are in support of it, the WNBA has to do this. And I find it funny because it's so big right now in the WNBA to talk about this that I found the best, I think it's the #1 USA tennis player. The #1 U.S. tennis player said this, and I don't see you're catching any shit for it. Let me bring this up.
Jessica, I'm wondering, the WTA recently announced that there'll be that one-time gender test. I wonder how you feel about it, if players have been given the chance to give their opinions, and what's your opinion?
Yeah. I mean, my opinion is I think the WTA just wanted to update their policy based on what they've seen from other, sporting organizations. And so far, at least from my point of view, I don't really have any pushback on it. I think I haven't heard, even being on council, no players have really mentioned or said anything about it. So now that it's been announced, I think we'll see, obviously, now that we're here in Toronto, a bigger tournament and going into Cincy when the testing starts, we'll see if there's any more feedback. But I think so far, no one's really said anything. And I think it's more just the tour making a decision, updating it, and it kind of is what it is.
Yeah. So basically what she said was that, and that's the #1 U.S. tennis player in the United States. And she's saying that. Now here's the #1 tennis player in the world.
Hi. The WTA recently announced that, the players will take a one-time gender test. How do you feel about that? The first pro league to go in that direction?
I think it's really important to keep the fairness in our tour, and it's obvious that biologically, right, the men are way stronger than women. So I feel like it would be not really fair for the woman to compete against biological men. So I believe it took them a little while to make the decision, and I support it. But for me, I'm focusing on myself, on my goals, whatever it takes. If they want to test us all, I'm happy to do that. It's pretty fair, and let's keep it that way.
Yeah. So think about this, and you don't hear it the same way coming in out of the tennis association. You don't hear the same scrutiny because these people are all for it. And I want to say years back, John McEnroe, a very famous legendary tennis player, male tennis player, was asked, is Serena Williams the greatest tennis player you've ever seen? And he said, well, she's the greatest female tennis player. And he took a lot of shit for that because he made that statement, and he made that he made the differentiation between men and women. And he says, look, she's by far the greatest female tennis player ever. And to this point, just ever. And they said, well, why can't she just be the greatest tennis player? And he says, because she's not. She's not the greatest tennis player. She's the greatest female tennis player, but she's not going to beat any of the men. And everybody went ballistic. Everybody went ballistic on that, saying, oh, look at how can you say that? How, women can do just as good as men. No. I mean, maybe in certain things, just not these kind of physical sports. And everybody lost their shit about it. And you know what? You can't lose it for the simple reason is it's just true. Okay. Now, Megan Perpino, whatever her last name is, she's a soccer player. She was making this thing about it, saying, hey, you know what? They're going to go in there and they're going to be looking at these people, and how embarrassing is that going to be? And the tennis association is not talking about looking at people's genitals. What they're basically saying is that we're going to give you a swab test, and a one-time swab test per person, to make sure that you are not XX and not, or make sure you're XY and not XX, or vice versa. But that's what they're trying to do. And think about it. The #1 tennis player in the world is saying, I'm good with it, because everybody's good with it. Nobody's having a problem with that. So when that one woman says, hey, this is something that is just not a thing, it is a thing. And then there are places and people that are taking care of that. There are leagues, professional leagues, that are not allowing that to happen. So I was curious, what is the best female tennis player in the world say about competing against men? Let me bring that up.
Women's sports are highly competitive, often can compete with men at the same level.
Yeah, that bothers the hell out of me. And it's always some dumpy chick who's going to sit there and say, hey, women can compete against men in sports, but yet they ain't never played sports in their life. I don't get it. But what trips me out is it used to be only that. But now you got these coaches who've actually played ball are saying that it's okay to bring people in that obviously are going to dominate the shit out of you. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get into that, but let me go ahead and move forward.
And win.
What sports?
Like a woman playing against a man tennis player.
And in 1998, Serena and Venus Williams did exactly that. Or tried to. They challenged any professional male player to a match as long as they were outside of the top 200. The challenge was accepted by Karsten Brosch, who was ranked 203rd in the world. And the match was a close one. He beat Serena 6-1 and Venus 6-2.
It's a completely different sport. The men are a lot faster. I love to play women's tennis. I only want to play girls because I don't want to be embarrassed.
Yes, that is a true story. And it is amazing.
Yeah, I don't like that guy. But it was a good story, but think about that. You sit there and go, how do we address this when the greatest female athlete is saying, yeah, nah, I'm not part of that. I'm not part of that ideal. I don't think that way. I don't want to play against men because I don't want to get just demolished every game. But then you have other people that say things like, oh, I'll play against the man. And it's like, it just never works out. I don't really know. And I know some really good athletes that have competed against men, and they say, no. I want to say her name is Amanda Serrano. Talks about a story of how she thought, when she was working, she was an MMA fighter, top contender in MMA, fought for the UFC, or believe still fights for the UFC. She fought the line cook when she used to work at, work in a cafe. And this line cook, they would go back and forth with one another. And she finally says, you know what, let's go outside. I'm going to take you outside. And she said that guy smacked her. And she got up and she was like, what? Now I'm really pissed. So, they got into it. They were scrapping. He smacked her again. And she went down and she's like, something's not right. And then she got in there one more time. And then, he dropped her again. And she just said, yeah, this ain't the same. And she's all like, I thought I was badass. And she goes, and according to the UFC in my ranking, I was definitely badass, but yet she couldn't even handle that line cook. So, that's a little bit of a reality check, and I think that this is going to be a bad thing for the WNBA to allow transgender athletes in there, because it's not going to be a fair thing. And I just don't agree with it, because I was a coach of women's sports. I don't see taking away the opportunity from a woman, biological woman, and giving it to a trans person. Let's create something different. Let's look for a different way of dealing with this. Let's go with co-ed, or let's do the extreme. Let's just get rid of women's sports altogether and let's all compete in one sport. That's one way to handle it, but that's probably not going to happen. All right. Well, that's my show today. Those are the two topics that I had. If you guys have any topics or anything that you want me to address, just go ahead and let me know, and I'll get to it and consider it. Looking forward to having some guests coming on. I'm still trying to lock down some of those dates, and I'll get those people on. As soon as I can lock down that date, I'll definitely start announcing it. And looking forward to seeing you guys. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification, smash that notification. So this way you will be notified whenever we drop a video or we go live. And I just want to say thank you very much. I appreciate the support. Don't be ninja watching. Hit the like button. It definitely helps us out. And last but not least, I just want to say this on a personal note. Look, we constantly come across people in our lives that we don't even understand at the time. And Sharon, my girl, what's up? We constantly come across people in our lives that we don't even realize the light that they brought to our lives. And I just want to say, we need to embrace the people around us, whatever their thoughts and ideology might be, for the simple reason is that we're not all promised tomorrow. And let's learn to appreciate each other and understand one another, because, even though we have differences of opinions or we may think a little bit differently, we're all still joined at the hip because we're part of this race, which is the human race. And thank you all. And you guys take care. I'm going to leave it out. Peace.